Welcome to the First 40 Sports Show with the Goon Squad. It's Ice, Water, and Puma today. And we have 109 days left until the Rihanna halftime Super Bowl show. But we're going to start out this particular show with there is an article on Yahoo, which I sent to you, that says the scoring is down in the NFL, and they're giving their rationale. I've kind of noticed that you have a lot of 12-9 games or 9-6 games, things of that sort. And I wanted to ask whether the defenses are getting better or the offenses are just stinking right now.
Oh, wow. That's a good question. I think the offenses are not doing as well, right? I think it's to the point where you look at it, you say to yourself, how in the heck can with all of the rule changes that they've made to really limit defenses, not allowing defenses to be as physical.
Right.
And now in order to see more scoring on the field. So with that being down, I think that to answer your question, I think the offenses are struggling. And I think they're struggling because a lot of times you're seeing they're trying new quarterbacks, right? And then some of the quarterbacks that we have come to believe are still in their prime have struggled, okay? A la Tom Brady, right? Younger teams are getting better. Matt Ryan, who was in Atlanta for a long time, is struggling. Even when you look at a Jameis Winston that has lost his job due to injury, of course, in New Orleans, there's a lot of things happening where the guys, the quarterbacks or the offenses that you thought were really good and have been good in the past, or the quarterbacks that have been good in the past, have struggled. And other teams are rising up, a la Russell Wilson, even in Denver. So there's a lot of things happening that way. And one last thing before I go on the quarterbacks, and I get off of this very quickly, I think it has a lot to do with coaching. I think we're seeing some very bad play calls, some very bad coaching and crucial points of football games. So that full circle brings it full circle, if you will, and that's why you're seeing the scoring down in the NFL.
I would agree with you about the bad coaching, but I would also say predictable coaching and predictable play calling is because I can sit down and watch a game and say, okay, they just made a big play on third down. It's 1st and 10. They're inside the 30. They're going to run. And the defenses know that too, that they're not going to pass on 1st down again because they got a good play. And so they want to balance it out a little bit. When you're telling teams we want a more balanced offense, they're doing their counting. So I think defenses are becoming faster. They have to be, because they have to catch up with the receivers, and they can't leave any room for the receivers because you really can't touch them after 5 yards. And I think the defenses are getting a lot better. I think the offensive, like you said earlier, they're not creative anymore. You saw the Chicago Bears up until this weekend. They were kind of running a kind of a high school offense and defense, just bare bones, basic offense and defense, and they were coming up short. They kind of expanded their offense a little bit, and Justin Fields had a great day and won a game that I don't think any of us picked last week in our NFL picks. So I think the offenses have to kind of catch up to what the defenses are doing. I see a lot of defenses also using a lot of man zone. They're covering the best player on the field, but they're using zones to make sure that they don't get open. If they do, it's only for a millisecond that they're open. And then you have the defenses closing in within their zone. I see a lot of that happening also. Anything else that you see? I see kickers. My conspiracy theory about the kickers and the magnets and the field goals. I'm gonna leave that alone until I get proof. But I see the kicking game kind of really kind of suffering because they moved the ball instead of on the 2-yard line. They moved that ball back, and you have a longer kick to hit the extra point. I know that it seems like some of the games I'm falling asleep on sometimes because I love a good defensive game, but I need to see some touchdowns. I need to see some big runs. And I'm noticing also, Ice, that the running games, not a lot of teams really run the ball anymore.
Yeah, I can see where you say that. I might have to disagree with you on the kicker situation. Overall, maybe kickers, yeah. But as you know, Blackthorn and I mentioned before, there have been some phenomenal kicks that have been happening where kickers have we've seen. I've never seen this many 60-yard field goal attempts since I've been watching football. Not so in a certain period of time. Every time you turn around, it's like one of the best kickers runs out there and goes, oh, that's 60 yards. I saw a couple 61, 62, and then they were able to kick them with such force that the solid and the best kickers are earning their money, to the point where I saw one kicker, I think it was the Buffalo, I think it might have been Buffalo or Buffalo's kicker, that after he kicked one like a 60-yard field goal and he knew it was good, he started dancing like it's real money, you know? I was like, now the kickers are getting into the hype, but I think the kickers are the great kickers or the solid kickers are really stepping up. I mean, we saw the game where the Bengals and the Steelers really came down to some craziness where field goal kickers were missing all kind of field goals early. But I don't know. Like I said, I think it is a combination of things. Sure. And I told you before that Seattle Seahawks red zone syndrome is coming back to play, where horrible calls. Perfect example was the Browns. I'll get off this real quick. The Browns were struggling when they had turned the reins over basically to Jacoby Brissett to throw the ball in the end zone. This past week, what did they do? They give the ball to the running backs, the Chubbs of the world, and Hunt, and they start running the ball in the red zone and produce touchdowns. That sometimes you have to just keep the game simple and move forward.
I agree. Going to college football, you have the top 10. Georgia still at number 1, followed by Ohio State, Tennessee, Michigan at number 4, Clemson at number 5, Alabama at number 6, TCU moves up 1 spot to number 7, Oregon moves 2 spots to number 8, Oklahoma State moves 2 spots up to number 9, and Wake Forest and USC are tied at number 10 in the top 10 rankings. What are some of the games you're looking forward to see this weekend?
One in particular, it doesn't have a major of top billing or anything like that, just because I want to see how the teams react because of where they're at right now. That's Notre Dame versus Syracuse. I think there's a lot on the line for both of those teams. I want to see how they react. Syracuse has shown early on that they're probably one of the better teams in the country, but we know what Notre Dame's capable of. We saw what they did to Brigham Young, and even though Brigham Young's kind of falling on hard times right now, but we saw how that came together. Another one would be Oklahoma State versus Kansas State. You know, Oklahoma State has the opportunity to really show whether or not they belong in the upper echelon of college football right now. And Kansas State can be a very dangerous team just because of the factor of more of a rivalry, and this team still can be dangerous. One of your favorite teams, Kentucky versus Tennessee.
Yeah.
That could be a very tough game. It could be a trap game. And probably, I don't want to take them all, but one of the last ones I would say would be Stanford and UCLA. We saw what Stanford did to Notre Dame. UCLA is playing pretty good football, even though they lost to Oregon last week, and they've been doing pretty well. And this is the type of game where Stanford can get up for and surprise you, even though they really don't have a lot as far as to play for in the postseason, except for pride. So these are some very tough games where it's about pride. It's about what do you want to do? What do you have to prove? It's a lot of games where teams are playing to try to impress people with what type of medal do they have.
Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't mention the Ohio State-Penn State game. That should be a good game at high noon on the East Coast. I'm definitely interested in the Tennessee-Kentucky game. Also, Michigan State, that's a rivalry game. Don't want to miss. Michigan has been kind of coasting, and nobody's really kind of been criticizing Coach Harbaugh or that Michigan team that ranked number 4. But let's see if that rivalry has anything to do with them kind of falling short from being undefeated. They're 7-0 right now. The game that I watched over the weekend with TCU, who had a tough time coming back, but they did come back and win that game and moved up in the ranks. Of course, Oregon, that was a great game last week, and they're going to be playing against California. And then I'm really interested in if Florida can really kind of take it to Georgia and knock them off that number 1 spot. They show flashes, but I'm not sure if they can do it. But it would be interesting to see, kind of peeking in a game and see how they're playing. Of course, next week you have Alabama and LSU. Alabama has to bounce back from that one loss. And They play at LSU, so that would be a great opportunity for them to bounce back. And then USC bouncing back, and they got to come back, and they move up 2 spots. They got to kind of close some distance and try to do something in the Pac-12 to get in playoff position. I think that's coming out the week after next. So we never really kind of pay attention to those polls, but it's always kind of good for our folks to kind of talk about it. Any other games that you want folks to kind of pay attention to this week?
Well, I wasn't going to mention it, but you did mention Ohio State, Penn State. I left that for you on purpose because I wanted you to talk about it. But Ohio State going on the road versus Penn State. Usually Penn State, this is their whiteout game where they play, where they basically wear all white, try to intimidate the crowd. You know, the crowd tries to intimidate the players. But it's interesting. Ohio State going on the road again.
Yeah.
Like for the second time. Penn State's a decent team. A lot of people are going to be trying to look at them because of the fact of what Michigan did to Penn State. So they're going to try to, weigh the variables between Ohio State, Michigan, and you can't really do that. But looking forward to that, and I just want to see how Ohio State handles the road. When they had that Jackson Smith and Jenga, supposed to be probably one of their better wide receivers, they found ways to get it done when he's only played like 2 games the whole year. And that's nothing to take from him, but they have Ohio State has a lot of weapons. And most importantly for them, their defense has been rising to the occasion. Their defense rose up big time last week, making all kind of plays. And I think that's what they need to do if they want to continue to move forward and make moves in regards to the postseason and winning the Big Ten. That defense has gotten better. They've definitely improved. But Ohio State's offense is going to be there. But collectively, it has to be one of those things where one side is down and they're not firing on all cylinders, then the other one has to pick it up. And I think they've done that so far.
Should be an exciting weekend of football in college. And I kind of predict that there are going to be some big games that are going to determine who's going to be in the playoffs. And folks this is the time of year where you really can't afford to lose a game or you're pretty much going to be on the outside looking in. Let's go to NBA basketball. And there is one player, Portland is 4-0 right now, and I got to see them a couple of times this week. Anthony Simons from Portland, the shooting guard. This guy, I see why they kind of let McCollum go, because this guy is fearless. He was taking some big-time shots when they were playing against the Lakers, and he shows no fear when he's going in against whoever who's guarding him or who he's guarding. And when you get a chance, watch Dame Lillard kind of give him some love during one of those games, because he had to take the last shot, and he did like a little hook in the lane, a la Magic Johnson, to kind of put the game away. But I'm really liking this guy, Anthony Simons. And what I tend to do this year is to not talk about the usual suspects in the NBA, but talk about other players that are stepping up that folks need to pay attention to. And with Portland being 4-0, I haven't seen Portland be 4-0 in a long time. And it seems like Dame has a team. Glad for Chauncey Billups. Hopefully they can keep that up. Milwaukee is still leading in the Eastern Conference. Washington is 3-1. My Knicks are 2-1. We'll see how long that lasts. Chicago's 2-2. But in the West, you have Portland, Phoenix, San Antonio is playing really well. Memphis, they seem like they got their swagger back, and they're playing really well. New Orleans, and some of the teams that you thought would be really good and just hold the West in check, Golden State, the Clippers, and the LA Lakers. I don't know about the Lakers, but the LA Lakers and Dallas, you think they will be on the top. It's these teams with the younger rosters who are hungrier that are on the top. Your view of the NBA, man.
Yeah, a lot going on. You mentioned about Portland. 4-0 is really good for them. They've been trying to find out a solution to try to advance in the postseason for quite some time. Still very early, though. I do like Simons as well. I think he's a really tough young player. But their issue has never been at the guard position. It's always been down low in the postseason. But we'll see. But I'm glad to see that, because it's good to see new blood coming out strong. I have to also point to New Orleans. Zion Williamson, when he's not hurt, has been playing well. Collectively, they've been playing pretty good as well. Memphis, of course, is Memphis because we know what's going on with Ja Morant. But one of the teams I would also look at too out west is Utah. Utah was supposed to be thrown away with nobody expecting much of anything from them. Then you have a marketing, I think he's over there playing real well. You got Conley, some other guys playing real well. Also, too, Sexton, Sexton is coming off the bench and doing well for Utah. They're just kind of waiting for him to kind of get his feet under him. Not sure how well they're going to do overall, but I like the chemistry. It's almost like a band of misfits. Some of them that just guys that got discarded and traded and whatnot, and they're kind of playing their hearts off, trying to show you that they're pretty well still together. I like Colin Sexton for sure. A couple other guys like I mentioned, marketing, and they just really want to prove to the rest of the world that they're worthy. Mm-hmm. So, I'm glad to see them starting off pretty good. In the East, you mentioned about the Washington, I call them not the Bullets, but the Washington team is playing pretty well, doing well there too. Boston surprising me though. Boston kind of stepping up a little bit, showing you what they're capable of. We know it's still very early, but they're trying to show a little leadership. One team that I do like, I'm starting to watch them a little bit more, and I called them out earlier. I think they're going to be okay. I think they're going to cause some problems if they ever get everything together and not get anybody hurt. That's Cleveland. Cleveland is with Mr. Mitchell. He's starting to take over a little bit, drop a couple of 30-point games, got them the wins. And I think collectively they're starting to get that chemistry together. The one thing I really like about it, even if this guy comes off the bench, and it reminds me of when certain teams had when Jamal Crawford was like that hot six-man playing for the Clippers. Mm-hmm. If you are able to get to Cleveland together and they put whoever they put at the three and keep it moving forward, but you bring a guy off like Karis LeVert off the bench, Kevin Love coming off the bench, and even Rubio doing a little something, showing some veteran leadership, that team can really take off because they have some very talented individuals. I think they made a smart move by picking up Mitchell, who's a young guy. It makes them small at the guard, of course, but overall they look real good. So I think that's a team you need to watch out for. I think they can be very dangerous. I think they can cause some problems because of the size with Mobley and Mobley in the center and Jared Allen and just what they have around them. So be very wary of the Cleveland Cavaliers.
All right, I'm going to ask you this question. I know it's early, but what are some of the surprises or some of the teams that you expected to do well, not doing well right now, or teams you didn't expect anything at all, and they're kind of thriving right now?
I mean, I'll say this, and I said it from the beginning, and a lot of people go, oh, well, that's easy. Everybody sees that. But the Lakers, and I think the Lakers has a lot to do with chemistry. When you brought in Patrick Beverley, trying to have him work around with Westbrook is a very difficult problem. I know that they're trying to, they feel like they owe Westbrook something. They paid him a lot of money. He is an all-star, but you had to have chemistry on a basketball team. And I know he's complained about when he came out the bench, that's when he got hurt because he don't know how to whatever to readjust. I don't care. If I'm the coach, Mr. Ham, I'm telling you, you're coming off the bench because you have to create chemistry on that team. They have some younger players that's trying to shoot and shoot the ball well and fill in the blanks. But at the end of the day, it still comes down to LeBron and Anthony Davis. And they got showed up when they played Golden State. Yeah. But I think a lot of it has to do with chemistry. So I think they should either trade Russell Westbrook or just kind of let him know you're coming off the bench. I think that's all that is. I don't think everybody's passed them by so much. I think it's about them finding the right chemistry to know who to play with. I'm trying to think of some other teams that might have been a disappointment right now. I mean, you mentioned about the Clippers. I don't think they're a disappointment. I would say, even though they're winning, I don't buy it in Philadelphia. I don't buy it. No. I don't buy it. I know people are excited about it. They're winning so far, but I don't buy it. I'm interested to see what they do when it comes down to that. Another team that really has surprised me early on, I'm not gonna lie, I think it's would be Phoenix. I'm surprised because I still think there's some tension between Ayton and the coach.
Yeah, and I kind of see it the coach's way. I think I texted you and Black about that earlier. There was a game where Dame Lillard got into his head at the foul line. You got to knock those down. I don't think he plays aggressive. He should be dominating at this particular point in his career. He should be dominating. He should be one of the elite big men in the league, and he's playing like he's a stretch three. He's trying to play. He's trying to shoot threes, all that stuff. No, but bro, you got to get down. That's what they need. They need a presence in the paint. They don't have Crowder anymore. So he has to be as doubly good in the paint to protect the paint, and I just don't see it in him at this particular point.
And that's why my point too before is when the team re-signed Ayton, okay,
Yeah.
because they didn't want anybody else to have him. They didn't want to give him away for anything. They just wanted to walk away. So if you're going to do that, then that's where you kind of you have to come off your high horse, coach and player, and we have to work this out. You can't wait and say, well, we good, and not talk about it. There might be some talks behind the scenes, but clearly they're not getting the results that they're looking for. And part of it is the way that Ayton was allowed to play early on is really a problem. And I think that's where Coach Williams has tried to rectify that, putting him in a different position where they were playing kind of freelance, with he and Booker were playing freelance because of the coaching that they had. And then once they changed coaches, and of course, when you brought in the point guard, when you bring in Chris Paul, it changed things. Ayton game changed a little bit, actually a lot. So with that being said, you got to put him in a position where he's comfortable, and I think he was for a while. But you just can't make him the dominant player. He's never going to be a top-notch number one center, I don't think.
That's what I'm looking for, and I realized watching the other night that this is just not in him.
Right, and when you know that, then why are you doing that? And that's my problem with that. Which another part comes back to why didn't you, as you mentioned, Crowder? Why not? I mean, unless there's something he's done something egregious, why do you not resign him? He's a monster. You need a guy like that. I told you before, even though he gets in a little trouble, Montrezl Harrells of the world. You need a beast. You need somebody that's going to go in there and bang. They don't care, and they're not afraid of anything. And if you don't have that, it's going to show. And I think you're going to find out that they're going to, if Phoenix doesn't find somebody to replace Crowder, they're going to lack a lot of toughness that's required when you start moving forward in the NBA.
Yeah, they're an athletic team, but they're not to me, a tough team. So once they start banging around in the playoffs or getting a physical game, I don't see them kind of really kind of prevailing in those games. When I look at the league right now, the Lakers aren't a surprise. You kind of felt that the Lakers were going to, they I don't know if people want to deal with the Lakers anymore as far as trading players. Who can you trade Westbrook to that people would want him on the team? I don't know if his skills are declining, or the other thing is, on every other team he's been on, he's been the alpha dog, and he can't be the alpha dog on the Lakers. That's LeBron, and LeBron's going to bring the ball up. He's going to control the tempo, all that other stuff. All the stuff that Westbrook wants to do, he can't do there. I'm a little surprised Utah, after losing all those players, how they have kind of have a great record going in. They're number 6 if the season ended today. Portland really surprised me because I didn't think they had anything left. And really surprised me the great job that Chauncey Billups has been doing over there, trying to rebuild that team and get them in the playoff mix. The other teams that kind of surprised me, but after I started watching a couple of games, the Brooklyn Nets. I was thinking they get all together, and then you got Ben Simmons. It just seems like he's just not there. And he's, fouling out of games, which is, to me, uncharacteristic of him, because he was like one of the top nominees for Defensive Player of the Year a few years ago, and that was his calling card. But I don't know if people are picking on him because that one of the games that they called a foul on him, it didn't seem like a foul. It just seemed like a regular basketball play. Boston surprised me based on the incident that happened with their coach. But I'm looking forward to seeing how the NBA season kind of plays out with some of these teams, because if you would have told me that Philadelphia, Miami would be, 11 and 13 in the conference, I wouldn't have believed it, because, I'm thinking Miami's trying to make that next step to get to the next level, and that's not happening right now. But if you had told me that Washington would be second place, or Charlotte would be in fourth place, or Cleveland and the Knicks in 5 and 6, I would have been kind of shocked. And then on the West, you have Dallas, who was in the playoffs last year. Of course, I expected Houston and OKC to be there in the bottom feeders, and Sacramento. But you have the LA Lakers, who are an atrocious 3-point shooting team. And until they rectify that, I don't think they're going anywhere soon, not even in a play-in game. I don't think they're going to make it this year.
No doubt, I can understand that too. But we'll see. Like I said, it's very early. I mean, after 4 games, it does not make a season. We got a long way to go, about 78 games left, and there's a lot of basketball to be played.
Yep, you are absolutely right. Next, the Major League Baseball report. And before you go into your report, I keep telling you in black, I am a Yankees fan. I am trying to be as objective as possible. After 7 years of Aaron Judge, I've had my fill of Aaron Judge choking in the postseason. What's the excuse now? Here's the Houston Astros. Were they banging on trash cans? Were they picking up your signs? What's the excuse now? You paid for good pitching. You paid players to come and play for you. You should be in the World Series right now, but you got swept. And so it's not that I'm hating on Aaron Judge or Stanton. It's that I'm realizing as a Yankees fan that those two don't have it. And so if he walks away, I'm speaking of Aaron Judge, I will not be upset at him walking away and maybe going and play for the Dodgers. Maybe the Dodgers can use him. I don't know. But I want players who want to win World Series. Before we got in the air, the last time the Yankees won the World Series was 2009. Aaron Judge has been with the Yankees for 7 years. And every year, and when they get to the postseason, this is what I see from him every year. He disappears. I think I text you in black during one game saying, where's Stanton and Judge? Because they're not showing up. And I kept telling my pop that the Yankees are going to get swept. And he didn't believe it. But Pop is, if you ever want to talk to a baseball guy, Pop is the guy, because he told me before the series, all these series started, Houston was going to be the team to beat. And here is Houston and Dusty Baker in the World Series against the Phillies.
Yeah, I mean, but when you mentioned about the Yankees, I also say that I think it was the year of the Astros. I really believe that Verlander, when it comes down to straight nasty pitching, Verlander has been and is still one of the top money pitchers. Okay, not so much you think of maybe Cy Young, nothing like that, and you might get a mention, but we're talking about money pitchers. When you put a guy on the mound and the game is on the line, you want to really see him. He had 1 year he was off, but now he's a money pitcher. And that's what the Astros have this year. They have money players. They've had that for the last couple of times, even when they won the World Series before. They have money players. And I think they're kind of circling back around. That's why I think they were able to shock the Yankees. Yankees, as you mentioned, back and forth, not getting enough production between the top guys, but also the pitching too. The pitching really wasn't there. And you had, that's why I say collective, it's a collective problem for the Yankees. And I think this time they just kind of ran into a better team. I mean, I'm keeping that 100 with you. The Astros have been hot. They've been quietly, been consistent doing what they do. And they came into New York, played them, and they caught a buzzsaw. The team that I'll say from the National League, Philadelphia, it's amazing. I mentioned to you before that they made a lot of financial investments in bringing people in. They're waiting for it to pay off. It's supposed to be last year, a couple of years ago, supposed to be 3 years ago. Finally, they're reaping the benefits of the investments that they put out there. They've been coming in, bringing in top-notch guns, bringing in all kind of guys, and then all of a sudden now, you know, with the Trouts of the world and whatnot, they're finally getting a big return on their investment. Now they're sitting pretty in the World Series. Also, too, with the Dodgers having an off year, this was a perfect time for somebody like Philadelphia to rise up, and they did. So now, with that being said, in the World Series, we have two teams that are almost like opposites. You know, Philadelphia, nobody really saw them coming through. They kind of gave them a little love. Houston's always, anytime you have a Verlander, that type of group there with Dusty Baker, they're always kind of getting mentioned as one of the top 2 or 3 teams in that particular league. But it'll be very interesting to see how Philadelphia adapts. They're really hot right now. They kind of took down San Diego pretty easily, right, in 5 games.
Yeah.
But now you're facing the team that's been there for a while. They understand what's going on. You're hot, but are you going to be hot when it comes to being to strategy? And I want to see what happens there. This is a great opportunity for Dusty Baker. He will get no better chance than to win this thing right now. So it'll be interesting to see. This is an opportunity for Dusty Baker's team, and maybe they will rally around the factor that he's never, he's not have not won one with them, and that as a manager for them. So maybe they'll rally around that to take down Philadelphia. But I think it's going to be a great series. Game 1 is always exciting. That's on Friday. And right off the bat, Houston doesn't play, pitching Justin Verlander.
Yeah, I think Houston is 7-0 in the postseason, so they're hot too. And I'm wondering if they do lose that first game or the second game, will that kind of take them off track a little bit, because they got a chink in their armor, or will they just keep the steamroll going? Alvarez, is one of those guys that if he's hot, if he gets on, I don't see anybody beating Houston. And you mentioned Verlander. He's been pitching like a demon in the last few outings. And he just seemed to have just teams that have your number. And I used to think it was Toronto and Tampa Bay that had the Yankees number, but Houston definitely has the Yankees number because they just can't get by them. And so I ask again, I'm a big Yankees fan. I'm asking again, what's the excuse now? You bought all the players you needed. You got the pitching that you wanted, and you still can't get past this team. So either it's with the manager or some of your players who tend to disappear in the postseason. So like I said, and I'm going to keep saying it, it's not hating the Yankees because I'm a big Yankees fan. It's not hating on Judge or Stanton. But as my grandmother used to say, if it ain't in you, it ain't in you. So if it's not in you, it's not in you. You can be regular season heroes to me, but if you can't do it in the post game, in the postseason, what good are you? That's why they have Mr. October, Reggie Jackson. You had Derek Jeter. You can go through the list of Yankees who have performed during this time of year. But on this squad, I don't see those performers. So again, either it's the players or it's the manager that has to change.
Well, I'll just leave this point there. Even though we know how great how many great teams have been come through New York, as far as the Yankees are concerned, and how many great players have won pinstripes, there are only a special few teams and players that were, we like to use that word, magical. So just because you put on the pinstripe doesn't mean you're gonna win all the time.
Right.
I know that's like a given in New York, and that's what people want to think, but it does not make it so. Like you said, we go back to '76 when the Reds swept the Yankees 4-0, and like the Astros swept them. You had to prove it on the field.
Right.
You have to prove it on the field, and unfortunately, when you don't get it done, then you can't put them in the same level. When you think about that '76 team with Ron Guidry and all those other guys on there, they were loaded. They had the same thing you mentioned about Judge and those guys. But again, there's a reason why Reggie Jackson was called Mr. October.
Yeah.
Because he got it done, even though he had the fights with the Steinbrenners and Billy Martin. It didn't matter, even with Yogi Berra or whatever. When it came time to, put it down and make it happen, that's what those teams did. So until these other teams step up and other players step up for the Yankees, it's going to be what it is. So even if you get rid of Judge, you still need to find the right combination of players and coaches to get the job done. And that's all it is.
Yeah, we're going to move into our next segment, which is called Questions from the Squad. I put some questions down there, but if you have your own, lay them out, man.
No, I want to follow your questions. I mean, because we sit up in here, there's nothing I feel too much strong about, but go ahead.
One of the questions was, and a lot of people were talking about, is that the referees and Mike Evans, and did he sign an autograph or not? I don't think it's a big deal. The grown men, these players and these referees, it's not like they don't talk off the field or they don't know each other or know about each other. But what are your thoughts about this? Should this be a big story or not? I saw it as a non-story.
I don't think it should be a big story, but I think there's a different place and time to do that. okay? You're just coming off the field. You're under the tarp, under the stadium. The media, especially photographers, we know about photographers, right? The last
Yeah.
couple of weeks, they're everywhere. They're always trying to find something, or a cameraman's trying to find a story. And to see that is very unique and weird. It's like, well, if you were doing this now, getting an autograph, did that have any influence on what you called in the game? I think that those, you open the door for that. There's enough time afterwards where even when there's a cool down period where the players are in there and the media's not allowed in, if the guy wants to come in or say, hey, can I talk to you after the game or whatever, there's so many areas that you could make it where it's secluded, right? Where it does not need to be seen. So if you really want to get that done, you can get it done. But to have it where, you know how the media is now.
Yeah.
No matter what you do, if they see something like that, there's going to be questions. And maybe as a fan, I mean, you can't say that referees can't be fans of football. They're around the sport. And maybe it might be for my grandson or my sick brother, could be for anything. But again, the point of the criticism that you receive from the media and other people is like, we don't want to see our referees fraternizing with the players. And that's just how it rolls.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like he was calling in favor of Mike Evans, because they got beat pretty badly on that in that game. So it wasn't like he was giving them any favors in the game, or the referees were calling any calls during the game that favored the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But I just saw this as a non-story, and it was kind of blown up. And I think they didn't know the camera was there. I think it was a fan who was, recording it, and then it leaked out to the press. The other story is players part ways with Donde Sports, with Kanye West and his antics over the last few weeks. Aaron Donald and the brother who plays for the Boston Celtics, whose name escapes me right now. Yes, Brown.
Brown, yeah.
Brown. They are, they're parting ways. And it seems like a lot. Adidas, the Gap, all these folks are parting ways. And I was texting a buddy of mine who texted me about the story. He sent me a picture of a list of things that's happening to this guy. And I kind of saw it coming weeks ago, especially people don't know the history behind Adidas and Puma. Actually, there were brothers who had those shoe companies, and they are in Germany. And basically during the Nazi rise, they were making clothing for the Nazis. So I knew at that particular point, when the anti-Semitic views came in, that Adidas was going to jump out of there, because they don't want that smoke dealing with their company being associated with the Nazis. Because when you're under rule, the government takes over, they make you do sometimes what you don't want to do. But I knew they didn't want that history to come back and haunt them again. So I knew that Adidas was going to take their hands off this. But what are your thoughts on this as it relates to sports with Aaron Donald and Brown?
Well, I mean, I think part of it is there's a lot of controversy going on with Kanye West. And then, of course, that's going to affect his businesses, right? And we know, too, from what we understand, that at times he can, as far as some of his illnesses or whatnot, can have a problem with him being an unstable person and maybe not making the best of decisions. Right. Therefore, the way that he reacts to certain things or acts out in public can be a problem. So, these athletes have to do what's in their best interest, and therefore they jumped off the ship because they might feel like it might be damaging to them, which if they have the right to do so because of the factor that they have an image to uphold. And they probably thought it was a good idea at the time, and they were getting good service. But at the same time, when you have the CEO or the guy that it's named after, or the person that's in charge of it, going off the deep end, if you will, at times, it's going to be bad for your image. So therefore, they had to make other moves. But I just see it as it's the way you represent things, and if somebody, you just got to take care of your brand. So it's one thing for them to kind of go, it's not that big a deal. But when you see it unfolding right in front of your face, and your people calling you, asking what the hell is going on, how does it affect you, and then you go, well, hell, I got to make a move. And I think that's what happened. College football. Looking at something I was going to kind of maybe bring it up in my last second shot, but I'll throw it up here now. A team by the name of Liberty is 7-1. Mm-hmm. Liberty is 7-1. What if you think that they're going to get any true consideration for moving up and making moves towards the college football playoff? Last week, they humbled BYU 41-14. Are they the real deal? Liberty 7-1.
I don't think so. I know they're mentioned. They received votes, but I don't think so. And here's why. I think there will be another team that sneaks Liberty that will take them off their high horse. They're big BYU, which is a team that I watch a lot because I'm the West Coast correspondent on the show. So they did get them. They did get them. I have no problems with that. But like I said, they are not. I don't think they're going to crack the top 25. It has to be something really, really monumental to some of those teams that are like Cincinnati 20, North Carolina 21, Kansas State 22, Tulane 23, North Carolina State and South Carolina at 24 and 25. It has to be something really, really bad because Texas is right on the cusp of getting in the top 25, and I'm not putting Liberty over Texas. Oregon State, Mississippi State, Maryland, these are teams that are receiving votes. I can't put Liberty over those teams. I really can't. So maybe you know something I don't know. But when you talk about Texas, they're 5-3. Mississippi State, they're 5-3. You have Oregon State is 6-2. Maryland is 6-2. Troy is 6-2. I foresee that what will happen to Liberty is that they will stub their toe by the end of the season, and we won't be having this conversation about Liberty.
Interesting. If I'm a Liberty fan, I'm a Liberty alumnus or what have you, or a player, all I would say is all we can play is who's on our schedule.
Right.
They put BYU out in front of them. BYU early on was a team that was making a lot of noise. You know, BYU was upset by Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
BYU lost a few other games, but then BYU got, not only defeated, but they were humbled.
Yeah.
41-14 is a big score.
Yeah.
BYU usually plays against some top-notch teams and quality talent, and they were humbled. Yeah. 41-14. I don't know if that's going to make Liberty's season. I don't know where they're going to go from here. But if I was Liberty, I would be poking my chest out a little bit because of the fact that, as you mentioned, it's going to take a big victory for them to win. And then if I'm at Liberty, I'm saying to myself, what else you want us to do? We're going to play who we play. You know, 7-1. And to destroy BYU. Okay.
Yeah. Because they kind of remind me of teams like in past years, Coastal Carolina, who comes out of nowhere and they start beating up on some good teams in the top 25, and then you put them in higher rank, and then you get them in bowl games, and then all of a sudden you start seeing that what's real. So like I said, you got Texas out there. Now I know Texas, they kind of played to the brink with Alabama. I am not putting Liberty over Texas in the top 25 if Texas has a big win. I'm not putting them over some of the teams like Oregon State that are in bigger conferences who play a more robust schedule over, I'm not putting Liberty over them. So, it's sad that, you only play who's in front of you. But, when you have the Power 5 conferences and you have teams that are big football schools that people are used to seeing, Liberty is probably going to have to, settle for what they get and be honorable mention, getting a few votes, and have a great season. And we'll see you next year. Now, if you do it next year and schedule some big teams and beat them like you beat BYU, okay.
Interesting. I'm looking at Liberty's schedule right now. I'm just trying to make sure. They beat Southern Mississippi. They beat UAB. They lost to Wake Forest by 1 point.
Yeah.
Beat Old Dominion. Beat UMass. Okay, be interesting. So as you said, you're looking for them to get a big win.
Yeah, who they play?
November 5th at Arkansas.
Okay, let's see.
At Arkansas, and then they play versus Virginia Tech on November 19th. But Arkansas is probably the big
the SEC. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So there you go.
If they can beat them. Let's see. You got another question?
Yes. Just out of curiosity, and I know we haven't talked about it, but the appeal in the Russian court for Brittany Griner was rejected, and apparently they said she needs to stay in and do her time. So, any surprises there? What do you think that is next for Brittany Griner?
I don't think there were any surprises at all in my eyes that they were going to pull this and say, no, we're not going to grant you an appeal. What I do think will happen over some time, maybe in a few months or maybe in a year, a deal will be made. I think within a year, a deal will be made. And it depends on the war effort in Ukraine. I truly believe that. So if that cools down, that squelches, cooler heads prevail, it'll probably be more beneficial to her situation than if it continues. If this war continues for another year, 2 years, I don't see it happen.
I understand. I do agree. I'm not surprised by the verdict that came out. I think they kind of know what's going on right now in Russia, and that's why they try to do everything they could to their due diligence to try to, show respect for the Russian government and the way that they run business over there as far as the court system. But unfortunately, she's just Brittany Griner's in a bad way right now, and now they're talking about sending her over to a Parvo prison where it's more like a constant, not somebody, I'm gonna say concentration camp, but a place where it's really tough, a tough place where it's back to the old school way of prisons, prison reform. And they're wondering whether or not she's going to make it in regards to how she's going to adapt. Because it's kind of treated where they think the inmates almost run the asylum sometimes, some people say, where there's different things taking place. So for her sake, I just don't know. I just wonder mentally how is she able to continue to cope. Totally different situation for her. She's a larger individual. Most prisons are made for smaller people. Hell, even to the point of how she doing her hair, bro. She got a certain kind of style. I know that don't mean much to most people, but wow. I mean, just things that you normally take for granted as a U.S. citizen and a person that has money. And now she's in a position where all you can do is just, time is just time. Time is not your friend right now. And I just don't know what happens. You hope for her it does. But the other part too is some people are looking at it like, well, if that was the average person, would they get in what kind of response will we get in there too? So don't know what's going on. I just hope she stays healthy and try to keep her mind right as she deals with this situation.
And there are also average people over there already. So she's not the only one that's the prisoner, and they've been locked up for a longer period of time. So this should be a cautionary tale to arrogant Americans who travel abroad, that you cannot get away. You're not privileged because you're American. And so this is what you face when you decide you're going to do it your way, and people are going to have to understand because you come from the United States. We're not well liked overseas in some places. So you got to watch your step. You got to watch your setup when you're over there. And we've talked about this situation a ton of times on this show, but I feel bad for her. But when you took a chance in doing that, then this is what the consequences are. And so it should be a cautionary tale to other folks who want to travel and, as we call it over here, riding dirty. You can't do that in other countries. They don't have the same laws. They don't look at it the way we look at it. And the penalties are much harsher because they don't want certain elements or certain things in their country. So again, I feel bad for her and her family, but this is the chance you take when you do things like that.
No doubt, no doubt.
Last second shot.
Yeah, last second shot. I'll say this. I was watching the commercial, and it was more or less talking about how sports brings people together.
Mm-hmm.
We know that how you don't need a ticket. Everybody, if you like a certain sport or whatever, you can get together and enjoy the game. You can have your favorite beverage, favorite food. I was talking to a gentleman earlier talking about the aspect that he's not really a big football fan, but he knows that's what people do. So he jumps on board the same way when he mentioned about March Madness. So my hope is that we still have more people in sports that end up doing good things because people are watching and you want to set better examples, and that realize that sports is something that breaks all barriers. It always has, always, hopefully always will. It breaks all barriers and it forces people to see things for what they truly are. And you just break down all barriers, because at the end of the day, it's about competing and then joining with like-minded individuals and having fun. And oftentimes just to wear the same damn colors and act like little kids when you watch the game.
I hate to put a little salt on that with my last second shot, but as you watch the World Series on Friday, a buddy of mine who watches the show put me up on this. There are no U.S. born Black players on World Series rosters. I'll say that again. There are no U.S. born Black players on World Series rosters. We got to do better. Does Major League Baseball want Black players, or are we substitute for darker shaded our Latino brothers out there? Because we've been talking about this for years, but there are no Black players playing in the World Series. And we got to do something about programs and changing that, because I look forward as a kid watching some of the people who look like me watching the World Series. And I'm not opposed to watching, some of the young stars now, but I know there's some kids out there, some young kids and some young talent who can play in Major League Baseball. And we need to do something about it. If you're trying to honor the Negro leagues, then honor some of the Black players who can actually go in and take spots in baseball and maybe help us win a World Series with the Yankees. That's my last second shot. We'll be back next week.
The signs have been there for a long time. Yeah. You look, I remember going to certain neighborhoods and you saw that there were baseball fields everywhere. You saw that the greens were, immaculate. Somebody was out there cutting the grass because kids were participating. It was like that, but we don't see that in the neighborhoods anymore, especially where we're at. You might see some exceptions where they had the travel teams and whatnot, but there were baseball fields everywhere and they were taken care of because at some point, people were either playing softball or kids were playing baseball. It was in the neighborhoods. It was an easy sport. You had local merchants coming together and they would donate money and funds for uniforms and snacks and just bringing kids together. And you had that across locally. But now it just doesn't happen. It's not happening because I remember the RBI program. Joe Morgan took it under his wing to try to make things better. But, they're not really, I don't think they're really looking at after presenting this to kids anymore. Plus, too, I think it's very difficult for young men of color, young African-American men, find places to play.
Yeah.
There was a time where you could just go in your neighborhood. I remember that. I used to go to my neighborhood or go across town and play baseball. But now you got to go into a certain situation. And it's not like that. And like you said, now once the cavalry came up from down south, our Latino brothers and others individuals, they come in and they're not getting on those spots, bro.
Yeah, they're like we'll knock out two birds with one stone. It's almost like that's the.
Yeah, they come over here now and they're not giving it up. And now the media is even playing more into it, where it's nothing to. They're embracing the heritage and the culture, which is fine, of the Latinos, right? Mm-hmm. And whoever's playing Hispanic individuals, they're embracing it where you can hear them saying Spanish, broadcasting or saying messages in their native language, along with now coming back. So now it's embraced. So they're not even looking for, when they mention about Negro leagues, that's great and all, but they're not looking for the brothers, man. Yeah. They're not looking for that talent like that, because you say one thing and I'm like, just if you're going to do that, just celebrate the history, right? Celebrate the history for what it is. If the game is the way you like it and you want it to be a certain way, rock with that. But don't try to infuse it like you're really looking for this, that, and that, because you're not.
Here's my personal take on this is let's restart the Negro Leagues, man. Let's restart it. Let's restart it.
Baseball couldn't take that, bro.
They're not looking for the brothers. Then let's start the Negro Leagues, man. There are a lot of brothers out there that can play baseball.
They would need, and I say we as to the standpoint of a man of color, they would need a strong cash flow,
Yeah,
strong backing first. Okay, because you do that, you can get it done. And I say that because you watch what Deion Sanders did when he went down to Jackson State.
right.
So some people with presence that have played before, and then you would need to have it where they would have strong backing, and then work it to a point where some people would take a step up and go, "Hey, we're gonna take certain groups and we're gonna show these young kids how to play, and then we're gonna develop it from that standpoint." I think I started out. Even if you can't do it as a major league, I started off as a farm system.
Yep, 10 teams, historical teams, the Grays, Kansas City Monarchs, some historical teams in big marketplaces. I can feel that it will sell. And Major League Baseball will try to get in on it to try to maybe squash it. But if they're not letting us in, then we need to create our own.
And that's why I think personally, not to cut you off, but I think that's where you started almost like a farm system.
Yeah.
Because as you mentioned, there's a lot of young players too, and you give it the uniqueness of the history because you have the original teams, right? You have the Dayton Marcos. You have all kind of other individual teams that are coming up with it. Where they had these original names, these franchises, and now you're infusing younger players that are developing in this system that are preparing to play on another level. And how can you walk away from talent that is unseen because maybe they didn't have the right opportunity or whatever? But it's the same way the one thing that the Negro Leagues were fighting prior to not getting included, some of the best players, now they're no longer will be an excuse because now the talent will be the talent.
Yeah. If I had the money, man, I'd do it. I'd do it in a heartbeat. I'd invest and say, let's start the Negro Leagues. And so it's the same as what Ice Cube's doing with the Big Three, but more professional, not 3 players, but 10 teams from the biggest 10 markets, and you highlight the history. You bring light to what this league actually meant and how important it was, statistics, things of that sort. We won't go by major league statistics. We'll go by the Negro League statistics, if there are statistics there, and how these players match up with some of those statistics of the Negro League players historically back in the day. I'd do it in a heartbeat because we talked about it several times on the show where it's like, you need to start leagues, little league, things of that sort. And if you don't give the youth something to do other than basketball and football, they're lost. They're out there just searching for something to do. I propose let's bring the Negro Leagues back. It could be a farm system, it could be whatever, but give these African American players, and then you can have your Latino players, and you have white players who want to play in this league too. But it's the Negro Leagues, and so to give opportunities to African American ball players to play in this league and to play and hone their skills.
I agree.